Aloha. Today I'm going to make a video that I think a lot of people have been looking for. I know I've been wanting to make it. I wish I would have seen it a while back, but I guess the best that you can do is make one yourself. So today's video is going to be about explaining what I like to consider the final step of the INTJ. If you watch my series on INTJ and the path of awareness, it talks about the perception that each of the personalities, combinations that you can come across in the Myers-Briggs test is a different stage of soul development. And at this point, we're able to fly through them as fast as we want to. So, and each one has a whole nother challenge of what to look for, what to grow from, what you're in resistance to, how to respond, and how to socially interact, how to get what you want. So each one kind of includes its own built-in defense mechanisms too, which we'll get into defense mechanisms in the next video, which will be a good video. But since I put the videos up, I've had a ton of positive feedback. It's been really good. I searched the internet for all sorts of stuff on INTJs and just kept studying things. And then my own path has just kind of kept moving along too. So I'm going to touch on that from what I've seen as an INTJ for a long time, and how to finally wrap up the INTJ what's a good word for it? Just perspective, I guess. So some of the things that go along with the INTJ, and if you are an INTJ, you will relate to this, and my other videos have a massive amount of my perspectives on the INTJ. Has to do with critical analysis of everything. A detached, almost mechanical system of gathering data, performing covert experiments, and essentially not falling prey to your emotional reaction. So as we go across this, and you start to work with this, you start to pick up the patterns in everything. Everyone, you start to see these different patterns. You start to learn how to manipulate these patterns. You start to learn how to control everything around you. And thus the name Mastermind. The INTJ is the mastermind, because the INTJ can basically just take a massive amount of people, information, situations, process it, and knows exactly where to touch in the right spots to manipulate the situation into getting what they want. So at a certain point, this does become a trap, and the trap becomes an intellectual one. And so I'm going to touch on today how that can happen, and how to get out of it, and what the next step is, which is so much more exciting. So for me, myself, I've been doing, my path has led me down a really exciting course, although the introvert in me is not showing that it's that exciting. But I realized when I was younger, I was a very heartfelt person, and I very much was emotional and all sorts of things, like along those lines. I had a lot of compassion and empathy, and then as I got hurt, from teenage relationships, bad friendships, just the circumstances of life and my own perception, I decided there was too much pain there. And so as an INTJ, my initial thought was, the world is in turmoil, people have no idea what they're doing, so if I become smart enough, if I can figure the pattern out well enough, I'll be able to figure out how to explain it to people so people can essentially free themselves of who they are. So I did that, and when I did that, I moved up into my head space. So my main operating system was in the center of my head, which is super analytical. It's it questions everything. It's where pattern recognition comes from. Your analyzer in the back of your head, and it's very far away from your emotional centers. So as I was doing this, I was running my energy a lot, doing a lot of meditation, so I was still keeping up my body. In my chakras, I kept cleaning them out, and so my heart chakra is the main one we'll be talking about today, my heart center. So I got to this point where I kind of knew everything and understood everything, and if you're an INTJ, you know what I'm talking about. And then things kind of started to slow down in the sense that they started to get boring, because my pattern recognition had allowed me to kind of figure out everything. So from there, I wasn't satisfied. From there, it wasn't like, okay, here I am, I understand everything that I ever wanted to know. So what do I do now? And in my meditations, I started to realize that what I was actually perceiving as everything was my ideas. So here's where like the big aspect of it comes in. The big part of what I'm trying to say in these videos is that reality is definitely created by our perceptions and our definitions. And that's something, as an INTJ, you can look around at people all around you, see their definitions, and see what their reality is based on those, and see how just their ideas can create that reality. So for me, I started to realize that all these things that I knew were me just being able to read all of my subtle definitions. So the trap I'm trying to talk about of the INTJ is one of it can come from arrogance, and it can just be the sort of apathetic knowing, and I have not seen anywhere out there of anyone explaining this next step. So obviously the next step of the mastermind is you've learned how to control anything you want to control other than your own definitions. So you basically piece together all the patterns that are going on in your life. So you can sit down, and I've done this, you can sit down and write out the patterns that you've seen, and you can basically go through and think about the different definitions that you have about things and see how your definitions are the ones that are creating your reality. So as an INTJ, you start to think that you understand and know everything, when in reality, you're just touching on the edge of this new level that's available where you can switch that even. So you've learned one facet, you've learned how to understand everything through the way that you perceive things. So now what you're saying is how to shift how you're perceiving things. So this kind of goes along with it kind of leads to this point of you don't really think of it as invalidation of all the perceptual analytical knowledge you've ever gained, but in a way it does. It definitely can kind of put an insecurity on that, which is kind of what you want, because the last thing that you want is to think that you know everything. Because if you know everything, then everything already is permanently what you know it to be. So the next step of the INTJ is to figure out, okay, I know all this stuff. I can see my own patterns and what I'm creating. What am I going to do? And how am I going to start shifting those so the world isn't stuck anywhere that I think it's stuck, and I'm not stuck anywhere? What am I going to do to be able to shift anything even more and get out of this purely analytical headspace? So we will talk about that in the following video.